You're listening to Policy Currents, a weekly podcast from RAND. I'm Deanna Lee.
And I'm Emily Ashenfelter. Every Friday, we bring you new insights from RAND's latest research and commentary. It's October 4th.
China aims to use social media and other platforms for overt propaganda and covert cyber operations. Beijing's goal has been to influence domestic and foreign public opinion in its favor, and the rise of generative AI could dramatically improve its ability to do so. This poses a serious threat to global democracies. A new RAND study analyzes how China is approaching social media manipulation. The authors write that China's affinity for foreign social media manipulation exploded between 2019 and 2020 with the Hong Kong protests and the outbreak of COVID-19. But in retrospect, it was really a growing crescendo that began in the early 2010s, with the realization that social media isn't just a force to be reckoned with as a threat to the Chinese Communist Party, it's also a force to be harnessed by that very same regime. And even though the effects of China's social media manipulation have been limited so far, China appears to be well placed to adopt generative AI for these purposes going forward, including using AI to run social bots for large-scale information operations. The United States and other democracies can take action to prepare for China's AI-driven social media manipulation and to limit its impacts. They could redouble efforts to combat fake social media accounts, promote media literacy among government employees and the broader public, and increase diplomatic coordination, especially with Taiwan, to share best practices for countering China's information operations. The U.S. government should also consider engaging with Beijing on restricting AI-driven influence operations.
Another RAND publication out this week considers the impacts of artificial intelligence from a different angle, exploring how AI might transform the U.S. workforce, and how policymakers can prepare for that transformation. The new publication harnesses the expertise of dozens of RAND researchers to consider critical policy questions across many different sectors. For example, the authors say that AI chatbots can streamline administrative tasks in healthcare by reducing provider workload and enhancing patient access. But the integration of chatbots must be carefully managed to avoid exacerbating biases and compromising patient trust. Prioritizing chatbot use for routine tasks, ensuring provider oversight, and implementing robust regulatory frameworks are essential to maintaining ethical and effective patient communication. AI could also effectively enhance education. Schools must realign policies so that educators can prioritize the mastery of foundational skills, rather than strict adherence to grade-level standards outlined in traditional curriculum. Without this shift, AI tools will fail to reach their full potential, and teachers will continue to struggle to help students fill learning gaps. The authors also say that federal agencies should adopt a worker-centered approach to AI. Workers should generate ideas about where job processes could be improved, collaborate with developers to conceptualize, develop, test, and refine AI tools, and once those tools are implemented, provide feedback. This can help build trust and ensure that AI tools meet practical needs for workers. That's just a sampling of some of the findings. There's so much more to dig into in the full paper, which the authors hope will, quote, foster an informed approach to integrating AI into the workforce, enabling leaders to create a future in which AI enhances human capabilities, drives innovation, and benefits society. As always, you can learn more at rand.org.
The Los Angeles County Rapid Diversion Program allows for some people who have a mental health diagnosis or substance use disorder and certain qualifying misdemeanor or felony charges to be diverted into mental health treatment before their trial. Those who participate in the program receive mental health and/or substance use disorder treatment, as well as case management services to help them address other needs. such as transportation and obtaining benefits. When they successfully complete the program, it leads to the dismissal of charges. This program, implemented in 7 courthouses across LA County, has support from public defenders, prosecutors, and clinicians. And while it has faced some challenges, a new RAND report shows that it's also had significant success. Fewer than 10% of those who complete the program commit similar crimes in the future. Lead author Stephanie Brooks Holliday says the program has, quote, filled an important place in the continuum of options for people in LA County who have behavioral health concerns and are involved in the criminal legal system. She calls the program an important strategy to reduce the disproportionate number of people with mental illness in LA County jails. The LA County jail system, the largest in the nation, houses a large number of people who have mental illnesses. In fact, a previous RAND study found that 30% of the people incarcerated in the county jail on any given day in 2018 were in mental health housing units and/or prescribed psychotropic medications. Further, this population has a disproportionate number of people of color, particularly those who are Black. Given the promising results of our new study, there may be ways to improve and expand the LA County Rapid Diversion Program. For example, additional funding could allow for more full-time staff, more support could be provided for case managers, and dedicated treatment centers could be established to close gaps in the system.
Recent survey data show that more than 60% of Americans believe that climate change is affecting their community directly. Where does U.S. climate policy currently stand? And what might change in the months and years ahead? Benjamin Preston, one of RAND's foremost climate policy experts, discusses a broad range of U.S. efforts to address climate change in a new Q&A on RAND.org. Preston breaks down the largest U.S. sources of greenhouse gas emissions, a primary driver of climate change. The first is the transportation sector, vehicles, aircraft, and shipping, which accounts for roughly 30% of emissions. Second is the production of electricity, which accounts for roughly a quarter of emissions. Even though there has been rapid growth in renewable energy, much of the nation's electricity is still generated by fossil fuels like natural gas and coal. Industrial activity, such as the production of steel and cement, accounts for another quarter of emissions. Residential and commercial buildings also generate emissions from the burning of fuel for heating, cooking, and other appliances. That accounts for almost 15% of emissions. Finally, the remaining 10% of emissions comes from agricultural activity, including energy use on farms and land use practices. The U.S. has been working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Under the 2015 Paris Agreement, Washington committed to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by the year 2030. And although U.S. emissions have been trending downward for more than a decade, achieving this target will require more aggressive action throughout the economy, including in the areas of electricity generation, buildings, transportation, industrial activity, and the food system. So far, the federal government has largely used financial incentives to encourage climate-friendly behavior. Preston notes that another key challenge is measuring the effectiveness of climate policy interventions, because it's currently difficult to attribute any trends to specific policies. That's why policymakers need better tools to understand the benefits of federal investment at the local to regional level. This would help attribute given outcomes to specific policy interventions.
That's it for today's episode. If you'd like to learn more about what we discussed, check out the show notes at rand.org/podcast. We'll see you next week. RAND is a nonprofit institution that helps improve policy and decision-making through research and analysis.